Hello and welcome to Daily News Simplified, an answer to what, why and how of newspaper reading. Today we will discuss the articles displayed on the screen from the Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper dated 11th February 2019. So let us start our discussion. This article on page number 8 provides a comparative analysis of the MGNREGA and the newly launched PM-KISAN scheme. Further, this article focuses on the problem of rural distress in India. And in this line, it has provided that the MGNREGA is a more effective tool as compared to the newly launched PM-KISAN Yojana in alleviating the rural distress. So this will form a part of the General Studies Paper 3 of the mains examination under the topic Economic Development. So this article highlights that to improve the rural incomes in a scenario of unprecedented rural distress, the government has recently launched the PM-KISAN Yojana or the Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi Yojana. And this scheme provides farmer families with a land holding of up to 2 hectares with a direct income support of rupees 6,000 per annum. However, the authors have highlighted that the NREGA, which is a universal tool, is more potent tool for alleviating the rural distress as compared to the targeted cash transfer scheme like PM-KISAN. So in this article, they have provided comparison of the provisions of NREGA and the PM-KISAN Yojana. So first we will go through this comparison. Further, they have also highlighted implementation issues in this article. So we'll also look at the implementation issues that are likely to be faced while implementing the PM-KISAN scheme. And at the end of this discussion, a question will also be provided for your mains answer writing practice based on the content of this article. Further, comparing the MGNREGA with PM-KISAN Yojana, it has been highlighted that a month of income for a family earning through the MGNREGA is more as compared to a year's income support through PM-KISAN anywhere in the country. So in this line, to support this argument, the authors have highlighted an example from the state of Jharkhand and Haryana. So in this line, if a household earns for 30 days through the MGNREGA, it is likely to earn about rupees 10,080 per month from the MGNREGA scheme. Further, in Haryana, if the same household works for 30 days under the NREGA scheme, they are likely to earn about rupees 16,860. However, these families will get a support of only rupees 6,000 through the direct cash transfer scheme of PM-KISAN Yojana. So that is why the authors have argued that a month of NREGA earning for a household is more than a year's income support through PM-KISAN anywhere in the country. Now if you go through these figures, the Jharkhand has the lowest wage rate under the NREGA and the Haryana has the highest wage rate under NREGA. So the wage rate of all other states in India lie between these two extremes. And even in the state with the lowest wage rate under NREGA, the income support for 1 month for a household is around 10,000, which is more as compared to the allocation under PM-KISAN, which provides for only rupees 6,000 per annum. The second argument is that PM-KISAN is a targeted cash transfer program. As compared to this, NREGA is a universal program. So under the NREGA Act or the MGNREGA Act, any rural household willing to do manual work is eligible under this act. Now this highlights the issue of landless labours. And in the PM-KISAN Yojana, the landless labours have not been included. This is because this scheme only benefits those rural households which have a land holding of less than 2 hectares. And it does not talk about the landless labours or the tenant farmers. So according to the data of socio-economic caste census, about 40% of the rural households are landless labours and they depend on manual labour. And these landless labours can earn through the NREGA schemes but are not eligible under the PM-KISAN Yojana because they do not have any land holding, which is a eligibility criteria for getting benefits under the PM-KISAN scheme. The third point which has been highlighted is that the PM-KISAN Yojana is silent on the benefits to the tenant farmers, to those people who are without titles, and to the benefits to women farmers. And these tenant farmers or the farmers without the titles of their lands and the women farmers are not likely to benefit because having a land holding of less than 2 hectares is the basic eligibility criteria for benefiting under the PM-KISAN scheme. The third argument is that the universal schemes are less prone to corruption as compared to the targeted schemes like PM-KISAN Yojana. Now this is because under the targeted schemes, it is very common to have errors of exclusion. Now what are these errors of exclusion? Now in such targeted schemes, it becomes difficult to identify the true beneficiaries. And in these schemes, a lot of people are left behind because they are not included because of the strict eligibility criteria. For example, to benefit under the PM-KISAN Yojana, a Kisan needs to have a land holding of less than 2 hectares. However, if the farming household does not have a clear land title, they are not likely to benefit under this scheme. And such kinds of errors are known as exclusion errors. This is because despite being eligible for benefits under this scheme, the household or the farming household will not benefit because of lack of proper land titles. However, the same family can benefit under the NREGA scheme because it is a universal scheme and does not require any clear eligibility criteria for getting benefits under the NREGA scheme. So by comparing the NREGA with PM-KISAN Yojana and highlighting the benefits of NREGA scheme, the authors have highlighted that strengthening an existing universal program such as NREGA would have been more prudent as compared to introduction of a hasty targeted cash transfer program like PM-KISAN Yojana. And it has also been highlighted that a universal program like NREGA will be more beneficial in alleviating the rural distress that is prevalent in the farm sector. Now, after going through the comparison of NREGA with the PM-KISAN Yojana, let us try and understand what are the likely implementation issues in the PM-KISAN Yojana. Now, regarding the implementation issues that are likely to surface in the implementation of PM-KISAN Yojana, it has been highlighted that the funds will be electronically transferred to the beneficiary's bank account, or it will be a direct cash transfer through the state notional account on the pattern similar to NREGA. So in this case, the benefits will be directly transferred to the beneficiary families through the account numbers. However, it has been highlighted that even in the implementation of MGNREGA, several issues have come up. The first in line is that even in NREGA, less than a third of the payments were made on time, which means that majority of the payments are not timely even in the case of NREGA. So the same issue is likely to surface in the implementation of PM-KISAN Yojana as well. Secondly, even after the Supreme Court orders, which has directed the center to disburse the wages within 50 days, the center has been causing a delay of more than 50 days in disbursing these wages. So all these issues highlight that there has been delay in the payments of benefits to the beneficiaries. And the same issues are likely to come up even in the implementation of Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi Yojana. The second implementation is related to the repeated changes in the processes, and these changes in the processes result in chaos among the field functionaries and the workers. Also, there are issues of shortage of staff and inadequate training, and all these lead to technical errors. Now, regarding the repeated changes in the processes, the author has highlighted the rushed implementation of Aadhaar in case of NREGA's payments. Now, due to these sudden changes, several payments in the case of MGNREGA have been rejected or diverted. Further, it has been highlighted that payments have been rejected due to incorrect feeding of account numbers or due to faulty Aadhaar mapping in case of MGNREGA. Further, there has been issue of failure of biometric authentication in several cases. So it has been highlighted that to make the PM-KISAN Yojana a success, reliable digital records are required. This is because the beneficiaries under this scheme need to have a land holding of less than 2 hectares. And due to this, by digitalizing the records, there will be a clear idea about the entitled beneficiaries. Secondly, there is a need to improve the rural banking infrastructure, through which the payments could be timely disbursed and could be provided without a delay. And finally, concluding, the importance of MGNREGA has been highlighted. So in this regard, the first is that it is a labor program which strengthens participatory democracy through the community works. This is because most of the MGNREGA works are carried out at grassroots level or at the rural panchayat level. And due to the implementation of MGNREGA through the Panchayati Raj institutions, the participatory democracy through the community works is strengthened. The second is that it is a legislative mechanism to strengthen the constitutional principle of right to life. And we know that the right to life has been provided under the Article 21. And by providing right to work as a legal right under the NREGA Act, the constitutional principle of right to life is strengthened. Further, NREGA has had demonstrable strong multiplier effects, which means that it has boosted rural incomes, which has further boosted rural demand. So finally concluding, it has been highlighted that at a time of such acute rural distress, the government should improve the infrastructure of universal program like NREGA, rather than starting new programs which pretend to augment farmer incomes. So in short, the authors in this article have highlighted the importance of MGNREGA in alleviating the rural distress. And they have also questioned the efficacy of PM-KISAN Yojana for boosting the rural incomes or rural household incomes. Now, after going through our discussion, you should try and answer this question from your mains examination point of view. And with this, let us move on to the next article. Now, this editorial on page number 8 is related to the strains that have developed in the trade relations between India and the United States of America. And this editorial is also related to the recent article that appeared in the Hindu newspaper on 9th February 2019. And this was related to the United Nations proposal to end zero tariffs for India under the generalized system of preferences. And this was covered in the DNS of 9th February 2019. So in this editorial, let us try to understand what are the current strains in trade relationship between India and the US, and what are the possible solutions that have been highlighted by this editorial. So in this line, the first is that the United States government is trying to withdraw the generalized system of preferences status to the India. And this is being done in order to reduce the trade deficit that the US government has with the large economies. And under this GSP system, or the generalized system of preference, the US government imposes zero tariffs on imports from certain developing and the underdeveloped countries. And this is being done in order to promote the economic growth in such poor countries. Now, regarding trade of India with the US, you should note that in the year 2017 and 18, the exports of India to US stood at around $47.9 billion. However, the imports from United States of America were only at $26.7 billion. So this means that the trade deficit is in favor of India. So by withdrawing this GSP status to India, the US wants to balance its trade deficit with India. Further, the United States has alleged that India has unequal tariffs which are in favor of India. Now here you should note that India imposes high tariffs on imports of United States' products, while the US has low tariffs for the imports of same products from India. And these products include motorcycles, agricultural products, and medical devices. And regarding all these products, the United States has imposed very low tariffs on imports of motorcycles, agricultural products, and medical devices from India. However, India has imposed high tariffs on imports of motorcycles, agricultural products, or medical devices from America. The third strain is related to the imposition of high tariffs on imports from India, for example, aluminium. And this has been an ongoing policy of the United States in the ongoing global trade war. And in this line, India has also threatened to retaliate with equal value of tariffs being imposed on imports from the United States of America. Further, the US technology companies have criticized the data localization imposition and also the recent tightening norms of FDI in e-commerce. And this will impact the e-commerce giants like Amazon, etc. Now, regarding the data localization, you should note that the laws which relate to data localization make it necessary that the information related to the citizens of a particular country should be collected, processed, and stored within that country only. And even when it has to be transferred, it should meet local privacy or data protection laws. And these issues of data localization are being opposed by technological giants like YouTube, Facebook, etc. So these are the current strains in the trade relationship between India and the United States. Now, after going through the strains in trade relationship between India and US, let us understand what are the possible solutions to improve this trade scenario. So in this line, the editorial highlights that both the countries should speed up efforts for a comprehensive trade package, rather than attempting to focus on concerns related to each separate product. For example, the recent instances of trade war, which are relating to the imposition of high tariffs on imports of aluminium and the removal of generalized system of preferences, reflect that the focus is only on separate products and it is not on a comprehensive trade package between both these countries. Second is that the United States, before imposing any withdrawal of GSP, should wait for the Indian elections to be completed. Thirdly, India should attempt to plug trade gaps that have emerged due to the US-China trade war. And we know that the United States has imposed tariffs or high tariffs on various imports from China. So in this regard, it has been suggested that India should replace the Chinese products in US with the Indian exports. Further, India must attempt for the current trade policy of US government to not cause long-term damage to business Indo-US relations, which means that the relation between the multinational companies between the India and US should not be impacted by the trade policy of the governments of India and US. And in this line, India has provided assurances for imports from United States, and it has also provided assurance to United States regarding the purchase of defense products. And all these steps have been done in order to reduce the Indo-US trade deficit. So in short, this article has highlighted that the India and United States must work towards curbing various strains in their trade relationships. Now, after going through this editorial, you should try and answer this question from your mains examination point of view. And the points mentioned in this article can be used in answering this question. And with this, let us move on to the next article. This article on page number 3 is related to the Forest Rights Act 2006. And in this, the Odisha's State Food Commission has asked the state government for faster implementation of the Forest Rights Act 2006. Now, this is a very important topic for us from preliminary examination point of view, and it falls under the topic rights issues. Now, if you go through the previous year papers of the preliminary examination, you will find that there were questions which are asked related to the Forest Rights Acts as well as the Panchayat Extension to Scheduled Areas Act 1996 or the PESA Act. So here you should note that there was one question that was asked in the year 2012 and there were two questions in the year 2013. So these acts which are related for the betterment of the tribal communities or the forest dwelling communities are important for us from preliminary examination point of view. So under this article, we will try to understand some basic facts related to the Forest Rights Act and to the PISA Act. And various provisions of these acts are important for us from preliminary examination point of view. And after this discussion, we will try to answer these questions which were asked in the preliminary examination in the previous years. Now, regarding the Forest Rights Act, you should note that in the colonial times, the control over forests was with the colonial government, and the traditional rights of the tribals and the forest dwelling communities were not recognized. Now, in the late 1990s, the government of India recognized that the tribal communities and the other forest dwelling communities have rights over the forest produce and the forest lands. So, in realization of these facts, the government enacted the Forest Rights Act 2006. And this act recognizes the claims of tribals on the forest resources and ownership on the land. Further, this act grants legal recognition to the rights of tribals and other traditional forest dwelling communities. So here you should note that it includes both the tribals as well as communities which are other than tribals or other traditional forest dwelling communities. So this fact is important for us from preliminary examination point of view because most of us can get confused with the term only tribals. Now, various rights have been recognized under the Forest Rights Act. So let us look at these rights one by one. So mainly 4 types of rights have been recognized under the Forest Rights Act 2006. The first is related to the title rights, second is related to the use rights, third is the relief and developmental rights, and fourth are related to the forest management rights. Now, under the title rights, ownership to the land that is being farmed by the tribals or other forest dwellers has been provided. And this ownership of land has been subjected to a maximum of 4 acres. Further, regarding the ownership rights, you should note that ownership is only for the land that is actually being cultivated by the concerned family, which means that no new lands can be granted under the Forest Rights Acts. So only those communities will have rights or title rights which have been farming or cultivating the forest land for considerable period of time, which means that no new allocation will be granted under the Forest Rights Act 2006, which means that it recognizes only the traditional rights of tribals and other forest dwelling communities. The second is related to the use of forest produce. The ownership of minor forest produce has been provided for the tribals and other forest dwelling communities, which means that major forest produce like timber etc. are still controlled by the government. And the rights over these major forest produce have not been provided to these communities. Then there are relief and developmental rights under this act. So this act provides for rehabilitation in case of illegal eviction or forced displacement. It also provides provisions related to basic amenities, and all these relief and developmental rights are subject to restrictions for the forest protection. The fourth rights are related to the management of forest. So in this line, the rights of tribals and other forest dwelling communities have been provided to protect the forests and the wildlife, because the forests and tribal communities have been known to live in harmony with the forests and the wildlife. So the points that are important for us from preliminary examination point of view are that under the Forest Rights Act, legal recognition of traditional rights have been granted to tribals as well as other forest dwelling communities or other traditional forest dwelling communities. Secondly, it provides for ownership or title rights in forests only to those communities which have been traditionally cultivating land in the forest areas. And this means that no new land can be granted under this act. Further, The Act provides for control or ownership over the minor forest produce, which means that it does not provide for ownership or control of major forest produce. And thirdly, it provides relief and developmental rights, which means that it provides rehabilitation in case of forced displacement, and it also provides rights related to the management of forests. Now, after this, let us understand who all are eligible for these rights under this Act, and also who decides as to who gets the recognition of title rights under the Forest Right Act 2006. Now, who all are eligible for rights under the Forest Right Acts? So, those eligible include those people who are residing in forest or forest lands and depending on forest and forest land for a livelihood. Secondly, the claimant must be a member of scheduled tribe in that area, or the claimant must be residing in the forest area for 75 years at least. So these are the two criteria which define the rights or ownership rights under the Forest Right Act. So only if a claimant is a member of scheduled tribe or he has been residing in the forest for 75 years. Now, who decides these rights? So in this line, the Gram Sabha recommends whose rights should be recognized. So everyone who is claiming rights in the forest under the Forest Right Act are decided or recommended by the Gram Sabha. So all these points that we have discussed are important for us from preliminary examination point of view. Now, after understanding key facts related to the Forest Right Act, let us understand key features of the PESA Act. Now, the PESA Act was passed in 1996, and this PESA Act means Panchayat Extension to the Scheduled Areas Act 1996. So this means that the PESA Act of 1996 is applicable only to the 5th schedule areas. Now here you should note that the 6th schedule areas are not included under the PESA Act. This is because the 6th schedule areas already have various provisions for the protection of the tribal communities in those areas. And these provisions have been provided in the constitution itself. For example, the 6th schedule provides for district councils, regional councils, etc. However, to extend the provisions of Panchayati Raj institutions to the 5th schedule areas, the PESA Act was enacted in 1996. So this means that the provisions under the PESA Act are different from the provisions which are provided in the Panchayati Raj Institutions Constitutional Amendment Act of 1992. Now let us look at some salient features of the Panchayat Extension to Scheduled Areas Act 1996. So this act provides that the legislation can be enacted by the state governments on panchayats in the scheduled areas or the 5th schedule areas. And these legislation on the panchayats or the Panchayati Raj institutions in the scheduled areas shall be in conformity with the customary law, social and religious practices, and traditional management practices of the community resources. Which means that these Panchayati Raj institutions in the scheduled or the 5th schedule areas should be in conformity with the traditional laws of the tribal communities. Secondly, it provides for the area which should be included as a Gram Sabha. So in this it provides that habitation or a group of habitations or a hamlet comprising a community and managing its affairs in accordance with the traditions and customs and shall have a separate Gram Sabha. So this provides that the grouping of areas under the Gram Panchayat shall be done in accordance with those people who are managing or those communities who are managing its own affairs in accordance with the traditions and their customs. Thirdly, every Gram Sabha will safeguard and preserve the traditions and customs of people, their cultural identity, community resources, and customary mode of dispute resolution. And finally, the Gram Sabhas in these areas will have roles and responsibilities in approving all the developmental works in villages, identify the beneficiaries, and issue certificates for the utilization of funds. So in short, all the activities that are undertaken in the Schedule 5th areas in the Panchayati Raj institutions should be in accordance with the traditional or the customary laws of tribal communities. Now under this PESA Act, the Gram Sabhas and Panchayats have been provided with powers to regulate certain things. And these are compulsory provisions under the PESA Act. So these are very important for us from preliminary examination point of view. So in this line, the Gram Sabhas or the Panchayats will have powers to manage. So this term minor water bodies is important here because they will not be able to control major water bodies like dams, etc. Secondly, the Gram Sabhas have power of mandatory consultation in matters of land acquisition in those scheduled areas or the Gram Sabha areas. Thirdly, the Gram Sabhas have power to control institutions and functionaries in all social sectors and local plans. Fourthly, the Gram Sabhas have power for resettlement and rehabilitation and prospecting licenses or mining leases for minor minerals, which means that in case of lease or licensing of major minerals, the Gram Sabha does not have any power. Fifthly, it has power to prevent alienation of land and restore the alienated land. The land cannot be taken forcefully from the tribal communities in these areas, and in these areas, if such land has been taken, the Gram Sabha has the power to restore such alienated land. And finally, the Gram Sabha will have power to regulate and restrict the sale or consumption of liquor. They have the powers of managing village markets, controlling money lending to the scheduled tribes, and ownership of minor forest produce. So all these points on this screen are very important for us from preliminary examination point of view. Now let us look at the questions which were asked in the previous year. Now this question was asked in the year 2012 in the preliminary examination. The question reads, in the areas covered under the Panchayat Extension to Scheduled Areas Act 1996, what is the role or power of Gram Sabha? The first statement reads, Gram Sabha has the power to prevent alienation of land in the scheduled areas. Now as we have learned, this power is with Gram Sabha. So this is a correct statement. Second statement reads, Gram Sabha has the ownership of minor forest produce. So you should notice the term minor forest produce here. And this is also a correct statement. The third statement reads, recommendation of Gram Sabha is required for granting prospecting license or mining lease for any mineral in the scheduled areas. Now this statement is incorrect because as we have read, the Gram Sabha only has powers relating to licensing of minor minerals in those scheduled areas. Hence the correct answer here is B, that is 1 and 2 only. Now these two questions were asked in the year 2013. This question reads, the government enacted the Panchayat Extension to Scheduled Areas Act in 1996. Which of the following is not identified as its objective? The first option is to provide self-governance. This statement is correct because it provides for Gram Sabha, which will deal with all the local developmental plans in that area. So it provides a provision for self-governance. Secondly, to recognize traditional rights. Yes, it provides traditional rights like ownership and management of various rights relating to minor forest produce, etc. So this is also correct. The third is to create autonomous regions in tribal areas. Now this statement is incorrect. And finally, to free the tribal people from exploitation. This statement is also correct because the PESA Act provides for various rights to the tribal communities in this area through the Gram Sabha. Now the question has asked which one of the following is not identified as its objectives. So in this case, the correct answer that you should take is C. That is, the third provision has not been provided as an objective of the PESA Act 1996. Another question that was asked in 2013 is, under the Scheduled Tribes and Other Traditional Forest Dwellers Recognition of Forest Right Act 2006, who shall be the authority to initiate the process for determining the nature and extent of individual or community forest rights or both? Now as we have learned, this right rests with the Gram Sabha. So the correct answer is Gram Sabha. Now as we have seen, all the provisions of the Forest Right Act and the PESA Act are important for us from preliminary examination point of view. So you should go through these points that we have discussed in the article in detail. Now both these acts that we have discussed here are also important for us from mains examination point of view. As you can see, in the year 2017, there was a question which reads, what are the two major legal initiatives by the state since independence addressing the discrimination against the scheduled tribes or the STs? So both these acts are important for us from mains examination point of view as well. And this question was asked in the General Studies paper 1 of the mains examination in the year 2017. And with this, let us move on to the next article. Now there is an infographic related to the special economic zones on page number 16. And this special economic zone will be part of General Studies paper 3 of the mains examination under the topic economic development. Now here you should note that previously in the year 2015 of the mains examination in the General Studies paper 3, a question was asked related to these special economic zones. So that is why this topic becomes important for us from mains examination point of view. So in this article, we will try to understand what are special economic zones, what is the purpose of creation of these special economic zones or SEZs. Further, we will try to understand the benefits of creating these special economic zones. And finally, we will evaluate the present conditions or the present distribution of special economic zones in India as have been provided in this infographic. And finally, we will look at some of the challenges that are being faced by these special economic zones. Now, special economic zone is a geographical area that has economic laws different from a country's general economic laws, which means that it is a specially designated area which has different economic laws than the normal economic laws of a country. And they are delineated as duty-free enclaves and shall be deemed to be a foreign territory for the purpose of only trade, duties and tariffs, which means that all other administrative laws are applicable except the economic laws or the normal economic laws. So in this line, India enacted the SEZ Act 2005, and this provided for the establishment, development and management of SEZs for the promotion of exports. So the promotion of exports was the primary objective of creating SEZs in India. Now the SEZ law also provides for the establishment of International Financial Center or Financial Service Center and free trade and warehousing zones. So here you should note that the Gujarat International Financial and Tech City in Gujarat has been established under the SEZ Act 2005, and this can be a very important fact for us from prelims examination point of view. So you should keep this point in mind. Now what were the purpose of creating such special economic zone? So the envisaged purpose for creation of special economic zones included generation of additional economic activity. This is because in these targeted areas, the economic laws are made liberal to promote the economic activity in general. Secondly, the promotion of export of goods and services was another important purpose for creation of these SEZs. It also included promotion of investment from domestic and foreign sources, creation of employment opportunity, development of infrastructure facilities, and providing globally competitive and hassle-free environment for companies engaged in exports for goods and services. So basically, these special economic zones were created with the purpose of promoting exports of goods and services and generating economic activity in those targeted areas. Now, benefits of creating such special economic zones include tax holidays. This means that the tax structure that is provided for companies that are operating in these special geographic areas or special economic zones have different tax impositions. And these generally have lower taxes or no taxes as compared to other industries or other companies operating in other areas. Further, these zones are provided with exemptions from import duties. And it has also been provided that single window clearance from state and central approvals will be provided here, which means that it also promotes ease of doing business. Now, as these benefits related to taxation, import duties and ease of doing business are provided in the SEZ formation, these are very important for India from the point of view of manufacturing-led growth. As we know that Indian economic growth has mainly been boosted by the service sector, and we have been lagging in the manufacturing sector. So one of the main purpose of creating SEZs is also to boost the manufacturing sector besides the services sector. Now let us evaluate the present situation of special economic zones in India. Now regarding the geographical distribution of the location of SEZs, they are more concentrated towards south and the western part of India. And as you can see in this infograph, Tamil Nadu has the highest number of special economic zones in the country. And Tamil Nadu is followed by Karnataka, and southern states account for 60% of the operational SEZs. So as you can see that Tamil Nadu has 40 special economic zones, followed by Karnataka which has 31. And also other southern states are leading in terms of creation of special economic zones. Secondly, you should note that although the special economic zones were envisaged to promote manufacturing-led exports, however, the special economic zone policy has been leveraged well by the companies in the services sector. And that is why predominantly the service sector dominates the special economic zones in India. And manufacturing sector has not leveraged the benefits of special economic zone. Now as you can see in this infographic, most of the SEZs facilitated delivery of more than one product. However, in 50% of them, IT products and services firms dominated the share of deliverables. Now as you can see that 54.1% are dominated by the information technology related services. So here also manufacturing sector is lagging in terms of leveraging the benefits from the special economic zones. Now regarding the value of exports from these SEZs, you can notice in this graph that the value of exports has been increasing continuously. There was only one dip in the year 2016, and even after that, the value of exports has been increasing. Fourthly, the investments in SEZs has also been increasing, and this can be seen in the graph here. However, the rate of growth of investments has not been increasing very much, and this has shown a decelerating trend. So this infographic provides information related to the geographical disparity in terms of distribution of these SEZs. Secondly, it provides that predominantly service sector dominates the special economic zones. Thirdly, the value of exports has been increasing from these special economic zones, and also the investments in these special economic zones have been high, although the rate of growth of investments has been decelerating recently. Now, after going through these points, let us look at the challenges that are faced by these special economic zones. Now, some of the challenges faced by these special economic zones include: first is that some provisions of the SEZ law have not been operationalized. Provisions like single window clearances, etc., are taking time to be implemented. And due to this, the purposes in the SEZ law have not been realized fully. Now, the second challenge is related to the complexity in undertaking domestic and international businesses through the same units in the SEZs. And these are impacting the viability of SEZs for manufacturing. This is because the major focus of the SEZs is on export sector. And due to this, undertaking of domestic activities in these manufacturing units become difficult for the companies. Thirdly, there is uncertainty related to the government policies. And this can be seen by the example of withdrawal of minimum alternative tax, dividend distribution tax exemptions, announcement of sunset date, etc. And the government has been continuously changing its policies related to SEZs. And these are adversely impacting the viability and profitability of companies that are working in the SEZs. Fourthly, there are multiple regulatory stakeholders in the SEZs. And these include the direct tax authorities, indirect tax authorities, exchange controls, state governments, and the SEZ authorities themselves. And all these authorities are not necessarily aligned at all the times. And due to the multiple regulatory system, the viability and profitability of the companies in SEZs is impacted. And finally, there are procedural delays as well as infrastructural bottlenecks. Now here you should note that the special economic zones in China have been found to be very successful. This is because the SEZs in China focused on enabling only a limited number of zones. And these limited number zones were of large size, and these achieved the agglomeration benefits and maintained long-term focus on these zones. Now, as the number of SEZs are more in India, it becomes relatively difficult to focus on all of these units. However, as compared to India, China has focused on creating big or very large sized SEZs so that a large number of companies can operate from the same SEZs, and this leads to agglomeration benefits. Now, to deal with these challenges, a committee was created by the name Baba Kalyani Committee. And this committee has recommended a shift or a strategic shift in the purpose and principles of SEZs in India. So this committee has recommended that the purpose of the SEZ should be shifted from islands of exports to act as catalysts of economic and employment growth, which means that the overemphasis on exports should be done away with. And the focus should be on these SEZs acting as catalysts of economic and employment growth. So in this line, this committee has provided various recommendations. And these recommendations are included in the PDF that is attached to this video. So you can go through those recommendations as well. So after going through these points, you can try this question which was asked in the mains examination of 2015. And with this, let us move on to the next article. Now this article on page number 9 is by an eminent historian by the name Romila Thapar. And in her recent book named Which of Us Are Aryan, she has tried to analyze the Aryan question by analyzing the history, language and geography of the Aryan origin. Now the content that is discussed in this article is a debate, and let us not get into this debate and let us learn some established facts related to the Aryans. So this will form a part of preliminary examination syllabus under the topic History of India. Now in the year 2017 in the preliminary examination, there was a question related to the salient aspects of the Rigvedic Aryans. So now let us try to understand some facts related to the Aryans, and after that we will try to answer this question from our preliminary examination point of view. So the term Aryan denotes a cultural community that speaks Indo-Aryan languages. So here you should note that these Indo-Aryan languages are from the family of Indo-European languages. For example, Greek, Latin, German and Sanskrit. Now certain examples are forwarded for this claim. And these include the Sanskrit words Matri and Pitri are similar to the Latin words matter and pater. Now the geographical area where the Aryans were confined belongs to eastern Afghanistan, northwestern frontier province, Punjab and few parts of western Uttar Pradesh in India. The civilization of Aryans is linked to the late Neolithic and early Bronze Age civilization. And the texts that have helped us understand or reconstruct the Aryan history include the Rig Veda, the Zend Avesta, Homer's Iliad, and the Odyssey. So here you should note that Zend-Avesta is a religious text of the Zoroastrian community, and the Iliad and Odyssey are the ancient Greek texts. And all these texts have helped us in reconstructing the history of Aryans. Now, second important aspect of the Rigvedic Aryans was that they were known for cattle rearing and domestication of the horse, and they owed their success to the use of horses and chariots. These Rigvedic people can predominantly be called as pastoral people. This is because the number of cows and bulls denoted the wealth in this community. And most of the wars that were fought in the Rigvedic period were fought over cows. And this is evident from the term Gavishti, which is used for war. Now, regarding the religion of Aryan peoples, you should note that the most important god of Rigvedic Aryans was Indra. And Indra was known as Purandhar, or the destroyer of dwelling units. And he is also considered as rain god. Other important gods included Agni, which stood for fire, and Varuna, who personified water. Further, there were also some women divinities, and they were known by the names Usha and Aditi. Now, in the Rigvedic Aryan society, the state was divided into Vis, and it was a collection of villages which were known by the name Gram. And village was a congregation of several families which were known by the name Kul. So these are few facts related to the Aryans. And to learn this in detail, you should go through the NCRT or the old NCRT of class 11th of the ancient history. Now, the question that was asked in 2017 read, with reference to the difference between the culture of Rigvedic Aryans and the Indus Valley people, which of the following statements is or are correct? The first statement reads that Rigvedic Aryans used the coat of mail and helmet in warfare, whereas the people of Indus Valley civilization did not leave any evidence of using them. Now, this statement is correct. The second statement reads, Rigvedic Aryans knew gold, silver and copper, whereas the Indus Valley people knew only copper and iron. Now, this statement is incorrect because the Indus Valley people were not aware about the presence of iron. The third statement reads that the Rigvedic Aryans had domesticated the horse, whereas there is no evidence of Indus Valley people having been aware of this animal. Now, this statement is also correct. And the correct answer that comes out is C, that is 1 and 3 only. And this answer has been provided by the UPSC in its official answer key of 2017. And with this, let us move on to the next article. This article on page number 14 is related to the Uyghur community in the Xinxiang province in China. And due to the terrorist activities in Xinjiang province, China has been interning the Muslims in this region, or the Uyghur Muslims in this region, into internment camps. So in this line, the Turkey has criticized China and has called the China for closing these internment camps. Now, this is an important event for us from preliminary examination point of view under the topic current events of international importance. And such communities and places are important for us from preliminary examination point of view because in the year 2016 and in the year 2014 there was a question related to the communities in conflict. So the points that should be noted here is the location of the Xinjiang province, and it is adjacent to the state of Jammu and Kashmir in India. And it is in the western part of China. And the community which is present here or dominant in the Xinjiang province is the Uyghur community. And this Uyghur community belongs to the Muslim religion. So only these two facts are important for us from preliminary examination point of view. Now if you go to the question that was asked in 2016, it reads, consider the following pairs. Community sometimes mentioned in the news in the affairs of. The first is related to the Kurd and the Bangladesh. Now this statement is incorrect because the Kurds are predominantly found in Turkey. The second is Madhesi and Nepal. This is a correct match. And the third is Rohingya and Myanmar. This is also a correct match. So the correct answer is C, that is 2 and 3. The question that was asked in 2014 reads, region often in news and country. So it is in this line that Xinjiang province becomes important for us from preliminary examination point of view. So the first match is Chechnya and Russian Federation. Now this is a correct match. However, if you go through the third match, you will find that Swat Valley has been matched with Iraq. And this is incorrect because Swat Valley lies in Pakistan. And by just eliminating this, you can eliminate the options B, C and D. So the correct answer that comes out is 1 only. Now after going through today's discussion, you should try and answer these questions from your preliminary examination point of view. And the answer for these questions will be displayed after 5 seconds. So the first question reads, with reference to Forest Rights Act 2006 to consider the following statement. The first statement reads, it grants legal recognition to rights of tribals only. Now, this statement is incorrect because it grants legal recognition to the rights of tribals and other forest dwelling communities as well. The second statement reads, the ownership rights can be granted for new land in the forest areas to the tribal. Now, this is incorrect because only those rights which are traditional are recognized. And in this case, no new land can be allotted to the tribal communities. So, the correct answer is D, that is neither 1 nor 2. The second question reads, the PESA Act 1996 provides for the extension of panchayats to which of the following areas? Now, as we have learned in our today's discussion, the PESA Act is applicable only to the 5th schedule areas and it is not applicable to 6th schedule areas. Further, you should try these two questions also from your preliminary examination point of view, and the answer for these questions will be displayed after 5 seconds. Now, the first question reads, Gift City in Gujarat has been created under which of the following? Now, as we have read, the correct answer is that it has been created under the laws of Special Economic Zone Act 2005. The next question reads, consider the following pairs, and it provides community and region. So in this line, the first match is Houthi and Yemen. Now the first pair is correctly matched because the Houthi rebels are present in the Yemen. Second community is the Uyghur and the Xinxiang, and this is a correct match because as we have learned in the last article in today's discussion. The third is an incorrect match because the Madhesis are found in Nepal and not in Bhutan. So the correct answer is B, that is 1 and 2 only. With this, we have come to the end of today's discussion. Now let us move on to the question for the day.